For our resident, this is very important and very vital portion of our orthopedic practice is radiological analysis, because this radiological analysis will give you the confidence of the diagnosis, and it also help you for planning of the treatment. Now you all know that a X-ray film, if we see it with a light coming from window, or if we see in the view box, that 30% increase of resolution, or you can address the all in detailing of that X-ray better in the view box, because 30% increase of the resolution of that X-ray. Now, as per classical teaching and classical um, recommendation, we have to assess all the X-ray over the view box. But this practice is going to obsolete now. Why? Because the X-ray film is a hard copy, and it can be damaged, or it can be misinterpreted if there is any problem in data. Suppose this is not a X-ray of that person, then you may confuse, or patient want to bring this patient have to bring this X-ray every time along with this all the huge document of the medical reports and the prescription along with that. So nowadays the all this investigation and all both on from radiology along with the histology along with the blood report and everything along with the patient data will save in a specialized soft copy, and this system is called picture archiving and communication systems. The all PACS. PACS is a database where by which you can get instant in detailing of the all radiological assessment, all the blood investigations, all the information about the patient. And this is specialized in software, and it is personalized by their institute IT cell, and that will help for our patient management, and this is very fast and very usable. And in this back system you can see the 3D model, you can plan any type of surgery, or you can send this picture for our knowledge communication with and take help of our colleagues. So you have to update about this PAC system. Now, before going in details for radiology, you have to know some thumb rule for assessing any X-ray or in orthopedics. We are not radiologist, but you have to know some basic rule to diagnose your case, or it will help in planning of your treatment. Suppose this gentleman came with this X-ray. Now you can easily see there is a fracture over the ulna and the radius. Okay, and this is the artifact of maybe patient came with a crepe bandage with a clip. Now from this X-ray you cannot get the information regarding the patient name, patient when the patient the X-ray taken, how old this X-ray, and site of this which side, right or left. Only you can see the APR lateral view and only one joint. Now can you plan a treatment over with this X-ray? No. Why? Suppose this is a X-ray showing there is a corticocancellous junction break, a AP and lateral view. This is a Colles fracture. Okay. Now, if you are most commonly we used to do plaster over this, and this is the bread and butter for orthopedic surgeon. But you have to clinically assess that patient also, that is there is any tenderness over any other portion of the this uh, this bone, because sometimes you can miss this. This is the fracture of the proximal radial head, or sometimes there is a capitulum fracture or any type of fracture over this radius. So you have to think a broad view. Now again, this is a X-ray AP view. From this AP view, you cannot assess this fracture properly. When you will see the lateral view, you can assess there is a huge displacement over this the distal radius. Because if you are not able to see this lateral, or you cannot appreciate this lateral view, then you will not understand the severity of this line. Okay, so there is a rule of two: joint above and below you have to check, view AP and lateral view you have to check, and you have to check the patient then the X-ray. Never judge a patient with the X-ray. Never plan a treatment for with the X-ray only. You have to do a clinico-radiological correlation. Now, along with this, I add one point from my PG experience, that you have to give a local view, then a systemic view also. Why? Once upon a time, when we were working at SSKM hospital, I have thesis on supracondylar fracture. Now, when we get this supracondylar fracture, we jump to the with this management and all, taking photos and all this. But once I miss a distal radius fracture of that patient. This is also called quadrate fracture. Why quadrate fracture? And this is irreducible because there is a chance of interposition of the quadratus femoris muscle, and as a result the reduction of this fracture is very difficult, and if you let it undiagnosed, then it can cause malunion and it can cause severe wrist problem. Now once I have missed it, after that I add it with this rule of 2, this local view, then we have to go for system examination of the limb, whole limb. There is any problem of any other part, because this type of injury may be associated with other injury. You cannot miss it, or it may be a medical legal problem. Luckily patient has no complaint, but I have to manage it on the long run when I will see that patient in our next OPD. I was very shameful for that. Now must go for a broad view, not a tunnel view. By this tunnel view, what you can see, this is the two child, but if you see the broad view, you can see multiple things like that. This is the X-ray of sapropelvic fracture. Now if you are not able to see joint above and joint below, you cannot assess the structure or the the effect of that fracture force dispersion. Okay, see, this is the whole length X-ray, and this is the knee joint, this is the hip joint, there is the fracture of the neck. So if you going to plan that patient from this X-ray, then you can miss this, and the patient will suffer from neck femur fracture non-union and going to AVN, and patient will put a medical case. So the specialized implant for that is cephalomedullary nail. You can use it very easily. Even during the operation also you can have problem with this neck femur fracture, because this is a high velocity trauma, and putting a nail femoral canal is very tricky. If you are not confident enough, you have not equipped enough with this type of nailing technique, you can do a arterogenic fracture also. So always keep with this record nail during the planning of any femur fracture operation. Now, if you can see any X-ray in the pelvic region, you are lucky enough to compare with a normal site. How to read this X-ray? This is the normal site, and you have to see the sacroiliac joint. Then you have to see the iliopectineus line. This is the quadrate plate. This is the medial teardrop. This is the acetabular fossa. This is the femoral head. This is the normal calcar, lesser tubercle, greater tuberosity, lesser tuberosity, greater tuberosity, greater trochanter, and this is the obturator fossa. You have to check both obturator fossa is in the same size. That means there is no tilt of that pelvis, and this pubic line will be continuous with this, and there will be this a small gap over for the symphysis pubis, and there is no breakage of this line. So there is no fracture over there. Now over here there is that all this portion will be repeated, like this is the iliac crest, and pubic crest, then superior rami, inferior rami, and this spine and iliopectineal line, the sacroiliac joint. There is no discontinuity. But when we will see the the neck of this femur, then you have to see the architecture of the calcar. See, there is a sclerosis, or there is a line, superimposed line over this area, dense area, and the normal angle of this neck shaft is lost. This the valgus is called valgus impacted neck femur fracture. Okay, but this is different with this. This is a neglected neck femur fracture with non-union. See, the fracture site is very obvious. There is a gap on the fracture site, along with the displacement of the fracture, along with the breakage of the Senatron's line, along with the sclerosis over this fracture site, and the erosion of the femoral head. So this is a old neck femur fracture. Okay, and this is the impacted neck femur fracture. Okay, now if we see any X-ray like this, this signifying that this is a case of non-union. How? There is a clear gap over the fracture site. There is a smoothing of the fracture end, and there is a sclerosis of the fracture end, and obliteration of the medullary cavity. That means this is a sign, radiological hallmark of non-union. Clinically, we can get a abnormal mobility over this area. Now, sometimes we can miss a big fracture on the X-ray. See, this is the AP view of a patient following a road traffic accident or any knee injury. On X-ray, as there is no obvious deformity, you can manage it with a plaster, or you can do conservative management, because there is small depression over this area, but there is no fracture line seen over this with this AP view. Now, if you go for CT scan, in coronal CT, there is a huge depression over this area. This is called depression type of tibial plateau fracture. This is called tibial plateau. Okay, so this tibial plateau fracture may be missed by this X-ray. Like in the distal humerus fracture at interarticular region, if this you can see this fracture, this is actually capitulum fracture. It may be associated with intracondylar fracture, and by looking at AP and lateral view cannot assess this fracture properly. Okay, you have to go for coronal CT scan or 3D CT scan. It will give you the idea of the fracture fragment. As per this fracture fragment orientation, you can plan for the surgery. See, the beautiful reconstruction has been done by Harvard screw fixation. Okay, same thing here. If you are seeing this depression patient, if we allow him with the non-operative management, then it can cause early secondary orthosis changes over this area due to the impinging of this gap over this femoral condyle that can cause problem. Patient cannot walk, so you have to put this this depression by a bone graft or bone cement, and you have to put a plate and you have to reconstruction the joint, the articular surface. So advice for intra-articular fracture or in peri-articular fracture, you have to go for CT scan, that the bony architecture will better delineated by CT scan. And sometimes you can get a injury of the distal tibia. This is called pylon fracture. From X-ray, AP and lateral view, we cannot judge the fracture displacement. You have to go for axial or coronal CT scan. You can easily understand the fracture geometry. As per the fracture geometry, you can plan the fracture fixation. Okay. Now, regarding the pelvis, there is a joint. This is called hip joint, and acetabulum fracture is not uncommon. And as per my experience, acetabulum fracture for our resident is very difficult to understand, and if you cannot address this acetabulum fracture, patient can go in long term hip problem like protrusio acetabuli, like secondary wedge of the hip, or difficulty in gait or painful antalgic gait. So you have to address acetabular fracture properly. If you are going in details in the acetabulum, you have to know the wall and the column. This yellow is called anterior and anterior wall, and this green is represent anterior this yellow is anterior column, and this green is anterior wall, and this violet is represent the posterior column, and the red of this area is represent the posterior wall of the acetabulum floor. Okay, now this acetabular roof is the best bone stock and most important part of this acetabulum. Why? Because this is the weight bearing dome. Now any fracture over this this area can damage the weight bearing domain. So you have to judge the fracture line. This is called Mata roof angle. What do you mean Mata roof angle? If this fracture line is more than 45 degree oblique, then the shearing force will be less. If less than 45 degree, then the shearing force will be high. So fracture fixation is mandatory, and 10 millimeter gap of this fracture line is have to address by fracture fixation. So operative indication for the acetabular fracture is mata roof angle. That means the one line drawn vertically, one line drawn along the fracture, and that will join in the center of the hip, and you have to see the angle. More than 45 degree, no need to do operation. Less than 45 degree, you have to go for operation. Now, along with this anterior column, anterior wall, posterior column, posterior wall, you have to know which column and which wall is fracture. There is two view. One is iliac oblique view, one is, and another is obturator oblique view. Now, by tilting this pelvis, you can take two picture, from inner aspect, from outer aspect. Okay, this is called obturator oblique view. You can see this obturator, and if you can see the iliac blade from inner aspect, this is called iliac oblique view. Okay, now which column and which wall will seen very clearly on which X-ray or which view, that is a very difficult to memorize. Just memorize IPC. IPC means iliac oblique view will best seen the posterior column. Iliac oblique view means this view will best seen the posterior column, means the posterior column means this. Okay, that will best seen by iliac oblique view. Now this posterior column, when posterior column is seen this view, then anterior wall must be seen very easily with this iliac oblique view. Okay, so just memorize it. IPC means iliac oblique view will see posterior column fracture and anterior wall fracture. Now deducted this, obturator oblique view will see easily the anterior column and the posterior wall. See, this is anterior column and posterior wall, that will be seen by obturator view. So don't try to memorize it, just memorize the IPC. Iliac oblique view will best seen the posterior column and anterior wall, and obturator oblique view will be seen the posterior wall, the anterior column. Okay. Now, acetabular fracture is a intra-articular fracture. You must have a CT scan, and 3D reconstruction of acetabular fracture is not going to work properly, because you need 2D axial cut. It will delineate the acetabular anatomy better, and it will help for the acetabular reconstruction planning. Okay. Now, I again told intra-articular fracture must be addressed by 3D reconstruction, CT scan or CT scan. See, can you appreciate any fracture line over here? A small fracture line over here on the lateral view. On AP view, you cannot assess anything, and here you can appreciate this a small fracture line. But do you know what is the name of this fracture? This is the fracture of the femoral condyle. Posterior part, there is a two condyle, medial lateral, and there is a condyle, and this is the fibula bone. This is the artifact. Sorry, and see, this is the fracture line, and this is the fracture line. If we see it in the CT scan, you can easily delineate this fracture. This is the condyle, this is the condyle. Okay, so you have to address it, because if you miss this Hoffa fracture, then patient cannot walk, patient cannot bear weight. So you have to put it on operation. You have to put it fix it with a small screw or hard bar screw, or whatever you can do, but you have to address it properly. Hoffa fracture. Okay, distal femoral condylar fracture. Now, regarding the all fracture management, we sometimes get some osteolytic or osteosclerotic lesion in the bone, and the bone tumor is though very rare, but you have to address it properly and you have to refer it to the treating team. Now, how you describe this x-ray? You have to describe this x-ray like that. Sir, this is the in the skygram showing the knee joint of a skeletally mature patient, because there is no physis. Skeletally mature patient, AP view will only, and as there is no name and no date, if there is name, no need to utter the name, you have and no need to write tell the date. You can say it's a recent x-ray. Suppose this is the x-ray taken on this month, then you can utter that this is the recent x-ray of the skeletally mature male or female patient. We just address only male patient of showing in the right or the left. This is most commonly right, and the right knee joint showing a osteolytic lesion affecting on the lateral femoral condyle from the epiphysiometaphyseal region with a sclerotic margin around this this osteolytic area without any deformation of the anatomical structure of the bone, and there is no articular incongruity, and there is no pathological fracture, there is no soft tissue shadow over, and there is no periosteal reaction over this bone. So I have addressed some positive point, along with I have addressed some special negative point which can help to differentiate this osteolytic lesion with the other lesion. Now, what are the differentiating diagnosis of this osteolytic lesion around the knee joint, which is affect this epiphysis up? It can extend up to the metaphyseal junction in a skeletally mature patient. Most common chance of this osteolytic lesion going to be giant cell tumor. Now, how I know this? You have to know this structure. This is I made for into two groups, less than 30 years, more than 30 years. You can tell is on adult, on the pediatric age group. Now, see, this is a skeletally immature child, so it is seems to be skeletally pediatric age group or skeletally immature. So this is a physeal scar, and this physis is closed. This is called skeletally mature. In skeletally mature patient, the most common tumor affect the epiphyseal region with a good sclerotic margin, may be associated with deformation of the bone. The architecture may not be associated with the joint involvement or the soft tissue involvement. Most common chance is giant cell tumor in adult. Okay, sometimes we can see a special osteolytic lesion or a cystic lesion just subchondral lesion in a healthy bone. This is called geode. Geode means is one type of cyst-like structure without and this type of geode has no clinical significance. Speciality of the geode, there will be a good sclerotic rim over this area, but if there is no sclerosis over this area and patient complain with pain, and that is very small area, then it may be associated with infection also. And one thing I have forget to tell, this is a eccentric lesion, and if it is expansile, then you have to tell it expansile lesion. Okay, so if it is centrally placed, then it is called centric lesion. So again I try to recapitulate all the finding. Sir, this is the diagram of a skeletally mature patient recently taken on the showing the knee joint of right sided, and there is a pure osteolytic lesion over the lateral eccentric non-expansile osteolytic lesion affecting on the distal lateral side of the femoral condyle without any pathological breakage, without any joint involvement, without any periosteal reaction, without any soft tissue involvement. Okay. Now, if any tumor affecting in this metaphyseal region, then there is chance of osteosarcoma, chondrosarcoma, and chance of metastasis may be occur. If there is any tumor over the diaphyseal region, there is chance of Ewing sarcoma, lymphoma, multiple myeloma, and metastasis. Okay. Now, generally, Ewing sarcoma most commonly found in the pediatric age group. So, chance of diaphyseal tumor is lymphoma, myeloma, and metastasis very high. Now, in the diaphyseal age group, tumor is fibrous dysplasia, is a intracortical lesion, intercortical scalloping and widening, mixed type of lesion, both osteolytic, both osteosclerotic. This is called fibrous dysplasia. Then, if there is moth-eaten appearance with a huge periosteal onion type of peeling appearance, this is called Ewing sarcoma. If there is only one cortex is involved with a nidus with a hyperperiostesis, osteosteoma. If only one cortex is involved with this with the sclerotic margin over this area and with a mixed type of osteolysis, this is called non-ossifying fibroma. If any type of osteolytic lesion with a tailing effect over the diaphysis, this is called condomyxoid fibroma, and this condomyxoid fibroma associated with calcification of this bone. And if there is osteolytic lesion in the centrically placed with the fallen fragment sign, this is called simple bone cyst or unicameral bone cyst. Or any eccentrically spaced with a huge expansile tumor, this is called aneurysmal bone cyst with multiple septi. If any type of mushroom shaped origin or truncated origin from distal part, with a huge bony swelling with a soft tissue coverage with a cartilage coverage, this is called osteochondroma. And sometimes the mottle neck type of appearance with a huge periosteal reaction is called osteosarcoma. Okay. If in the epiphyseal lesion, if there is any osteolysis with a sclerotic margin, may be centric place, this is called chondroblastoma. It is a benign tumor of the cartilage called chondroblastoma. And I already told you, if there is no skeletal rim, then it only osteolysis, then a chance of infection cannot be excluded. So I can explain both the clinical the radiological finding both for child and the adult, and all are the possible differential diagnosis. But this is the most common chance of giant cell tumor in the adult. Now, in the giant cell tumor, most commonly affected in the knee joint, then distal femur, distal tibia. After that, there is distal radius. In this distal radius, you can see the soap bubble appearance very easily, and also it can found in any type of giant cell tumor. This is the pathognomonic radiological finding of giant cell tumor, soap bubble appearance. Okay, and the epiphyseal region is affected in skeletally mature bone. Okay, now skeletally immature child with a multiple septi and with the expansile lesion with a cortical thinning without any periosteal reaction, without any soft tissue involvement, this is a with a metaphyseal involvement, this is a most common chance of aneurysmal bone cyst in the pediatric age group, or the near about in the puberty. And if we are going for MRI, you can find multiple fluid level. This is the pathognomonic radiological hallmark for aneurysmal bone cyst. But you have to go for biopsy, because the chance of telangiectatic type of osteosarcoma is most commonly found and present like aneurysmal bone cyst. and there is no age distribution on aneurysmal bone cyst. It can occur in any age group, but pediatric age group are the most common age group for aneurysmal bone cyst. If in the MRI you can get a solid portion of that cyst, then you have to think about some other malignant disease, and you have to clinically corroborate with the constitutional findings, that you have to think for longitudinal type of osteosarcoma. Now, this is the centrically placed proximally humerus with a pathological fracture with a sclerotic margin over this area in the affecting the metaphyseal region. This is called unicameral bone cyst, and this is called fallen fragment sign. Is a typical radiological hallmark of unicameral bone cyst. Patient may present with this and or the pathological fracture. Only conservative management can heal this. Now, this is the most common and most classical X-ray of osteosarcoma or any type of malignant primary bone tumor. See, this is the sunburst appearance or sunray appearance with the bony spicule will formation over the radial blood vessels, which is due to new angiogenesis of the tumor, and this is the osteoid matrix and this is the Codman triangle or periosteal elevation of this area. So this is termed as for osteosarcoma generally. Now, on the X-ray, osteosarcoma used to get metastasis in the lung first and the bone. And on the X-ray, when you will get any shadow, then it is on more than 1 centimeter metastasis must be occur, and this type of metastasis is called cannonball metastasis, most commonly found in the renal cell cancer and some colon cancer also. And subcentric metastasis can be diagnosed early by HRCT scan of the thorax. How assess a metastasis in the CT scan? You have to check one side of the lung, and you have to check all the cuts. You have to check a particular portion of the or particular lobe of this lung, and all cut. If we see one lesion and you cannot see it in the lesion above or below, then you have to think that it is a metastasis. Okay, see, there is, this is the normal bronchus, but this is a metastasis. See, there is a this is a lesion, but you cannot see this here, you cannot see this here. So this is a metastasis. This is called subcentric metastasis, can be addressed properly by HRCT, high resolution CT scan. Now, there is some special type of X-ray we can confuse you in the exam. This is called melted candle wax appearance or melanostasis. It is a benign disease. The patient will complain with pain only, and if it is affect most commonly in the adult patient, and intravenous zoledronic acid will help in to decrease the pain, and there is no specific treatment. I have done a case report, internationally accepted paper, you can check. Melanostasis. Okay, now this is called Marble bone disease. It is a spot diagnosis. See, huge sclerosis over the affect the whole portion of the bone, and the obliteration of the medullary cavity. In the pediatric age group, if we can see it, then we can see the obliteration of the medullary cavity and sclerosis. This is called Elix-Meyer flux deformity, most commonly found in the Gaucher disease, Rorschach disease, and sometimes in Marble bone disease also. Now, what do you mean by marble bone disease or osteopetrosis? If we see the normal physiology of osteoclast bone, is osteoclast help for remodeling of the bone. In normal remodeling process, there is a ion channel called hydrogen ATPase pump. This ATPase pump help to transfer the bicarbonate out of this cell, and it will drag the H plus ion into uh, this this area sealed by tight junction over this bone and the active osteoclast, and this this area with a huge and acidic environment, it will help for melting the existing uh, bone matrix, and that will help for reposition of the new bone matrix over here. So by this process, this osteoclast helps in remodeling. But if there is any mutation over this channel, then this acidic environment cannot going to happen. As a result, the remodeling will not occur. That is the pathognomonic for this marble bone disease or osteopetrosis. In this case, there is a chance of cranial nerve palsy because the closure of or the tightening of the all the foramen over the base of the skull. Now this is the spot diagnosis called osteopoikilosis. This small osteosclerotic, this is not a metastasis. This patient will not give any symptoms. Thus, just it is a is a incidental finding. But do not think this patient is suffering from any disease. This is called osteopoikilosis, and this is a trefoil pelvis is found in osteomalacia, weakening of the bone. As a result, there is a inwards bending of the pelvis. This is also called otopelvis or Potocki acidophily also. Now, this is the typical finding of chronic osteomyelitis. You can see a sequestrum, dead bone around within a living bone with the osteolytic lesion and loss of corticomedullary differentiation, bony irregularity, and clinically we can and radiologically you can find here this and the loss of corticomedullary differentiation, and this is the radiological hallmark of chronic osteomyelitis. And clinically, how I suggest, there will be a small purulent discharge with a small bony papules with a bad sinus or scar over this area, and on palpation the bony irregularity and the bony tenderness and adherent of the sinus with this bone. So this is a radiology of the chronic osteomyelitis. The sequestrum is the hallmark. Now, avascular necrosis of the bone, the incongruity of the articular surface of the femoral head, you can compare it easily along with the collapse, with the crescentic fracture, along with the sclerosis. See the sclerosis, this is the normal bone, this is the sclerosis. This is not a sclerosis, this is the superimposition of the posterior acetabular rim with the anterior acetabular wall along with the femoral head. So this is not the sclerosis, this is the normal overlapping bone. Now, and this is sclerosis, this is sclerosis, this is sclerosis, and this is the incongruity of the articular surface, and this is the crescent fracture. Okay, this is significant of the avascular necrosis of the hip of the patient. Now, if there is multiple cotton wool type of osteosclerosis lesion along with the ivory vertebra, then this is the sclerotic type of metastasis. From the most common site is prostate. Patient will be very painful, and this is the end stage of the disease. Only palliative treatment can be offered for this prostate cancer patient. And please go through everything about the prostate cancer management, because it is very important from the anatomical aspect, from the pathological aspect, even from the histological scoring system, and the staging and the treatment protocol. As per the recent treatment protocol, we can go for the operation along with, sometimes we can do orchidectomy or castration for prostate cancer patient is also called testosterone elevation technique in the long run. For palliative management of that patient, we can give zoledronic acid and some GnRH analog for treating this type of patient, and we can give only just quality of life, but the definite treatment is not possible in this stage. Now, vertebral compression fracture is very common in old age. It is the most common pathological fracture found in the osteoporosis patient. In that case, there is a history of fall, and patient will get tenderness over this region and the huge pain over this back, and patient with difficulty in forward bending. And on X-ray, you can see a wedging of the vertebra. This is called wedge vertebral fracture. In that case, you have to see the intervertebral discs. There will be no deformity of the intervertebral discs and no joint space reduction, and there must not be any clinical history suggesting of tuberculosis. If patient suggesting of tuberculosis along with this back pain, and you can see in that the reduction of the intervertebral disc space along with this type of changes, you have to offer MRI. You have to see the lesion. Then you have to think about the carry spine. Okay. Now, if the vertebral body will collapse or any pedicle will collapse, then you have to think about metastasis. This is called winking owl sign. Okay, see, one vertebral pedicle has been damaged. See, there is no pedicle. This is the pedicle, and this pedicle is equivalent to the eye of the owl, and this the spine, the tip with the beak of the owl. So this is called winking owl sign. If this is the erosion of the pedicle found, and the vertebral body height will decrease, then in the old age you have to think for metastasis or myeloma. Okay, but winking owl is the typical sign for spinal metastasis. Now, specimen. Regarding the specimen, in our exam you have to encounter with most common specimen is you have to see how this osteolysis is affect, or what are the structure of the osteolysis. See, this is the articular cartilage. Above the articular cartilage, you can obviously see this is the pathological part of the bone. This is the normal part of the bone. And in the cross section, you can see the epiphysis is involved. Then it goes to the metaphysis, and there is no soft tissue involvement, and there is no soft tissue mass involved. So this is chance of giant cell tumor is maximum in a skeletally mature bone. There is no physis. Okay, and if we can get a tumor like a mutton leg, and in that case there will be the articular cartilage and the epiphysis will normal, and skeletally immature patient or skeletally just at the closing type age, you can see there is a huge soft tissue involvement along with this type of periosteal elevation. This is the Hodman angle we will seen in the radiology, but in the specimen you will just see a abnormal bone structure. See, this is the normal bone structure, but this is abnormal. See, there is a hemorrhage, there is a cystic area, there is a osteoid formation, and see the radial osteoid matrix over here, and this is the soft tissue involvement. So this is the specimen of osteosarcoma. Okay, affecting the metaphyseal region. The points in the favor, this is the affected metaphyseal region in skeletally immature child with a huge soft tissue involvement with the intra cortical extension. See, up to this part, this tumor involved along with the periosteal elevation. and this as it is a bone forming tumor, it can spread from the intermedullary to extramedullary aspect, so the chance of osteosarcoma is high. Now every osteosarcoma patient must be go for X-ray and MRI. Why? Because X-ray will show you the periosteal reaction with the osteoid matrix, and if there is any pathological fracture. But MRI will delineate with intracortical extension and the soft tissue involvement, and also it helps to delineate the skip metastasis. See, when you are prescribing any MRI of any suspecting any tumor, you have to do a whole length of the long bone, because you can miss this skip metastasis. If any metastasis around or any extra tumor around this tumor, this is called satellite lesion. This is satellite lesion. But if you found some tumor just distance to the local tumor, this is called skip metastasis. So you have to check the whole length of the bone. Now this is the specimen of sequestrum. This sequestrum most commonly given in the exam, and it will get a dry bone and with a irregular surface, and this part is called sequestrum, and this bone will dipped in normal saline. Normal bone will float over the normal saline, but this sequestrum will sink in a normal saline because of presence of huge calcium content over this bone. Okay, and this is the special instrument. Sometimes the PG student can be miss this instrument. Only there is a serration, there will be no scratch over this. You have to just hold this any object by this forceps, is called sequestrum removal forceps. Okay. Now regarding the instrument, during the viva you have to utter some points about this periosteal elevator. This periosteal elevator, this is the handle, this is the thumb rest area, and this is the serpent. It helps during the reduction and the phacocyte opening, and this is called osteotome. This may be straight and this may be curved, and see the beveling from both sides is called osteotome. Okay, this helps during the bone grafting technique. Now if only bevel from one side, this is called chisel. It will helps to get the bone graft without affecting the inner table. We will take the bone graft from the only outer table. Okay, this is called chisel. Okay, and if this is a scoop type lesion in the long way, this is called gouge. It also help for taking the bone graft. Only cancellous bone graft will taking by this is called bone gouge. So this is periosteal elevator, this is bone osteotome straight, and if this is only bevel, this can bone chisel. You can be confused with this. You have to see from the lateral aspect. Only one side, this is called chisel, and if it is curved, then it is called gouge, bone gouge. This instrument used for bone grafting. Okay, this is the most commonly asked question in exam. And for postgraduate student, see, this is called DCP, dynamic compression plate. I have taken a good class over a long time for the screw and plate, but you have to just identify the instrument in the exam. This is dynamic compression plate, and if this hole will be zigzag and the structure of the plate is quite thick, then it is called broad DCP. Okay, why this hole is zigzag? Because this is the 4.5 screw hole. Now if we drill 4.5 screw hole through same line of a bone, then there is a chance of stage riser. To prevent the stage riser effect, then the plate has been made like this zigzag way. Okay, this is called broad DCP. Now if there is allowing this locking option, this is called combi hole broad DCP, both locking and non-locking option. Okay, just know the name. In your word round part, you have to ask for skeletal traction. Skeletal traction is special type of traction most commonly used for conservative management of in orthopedic practice, or you have to give traction before the operation for prevent the soft tissue contracture, and it decrease the pain over the fracture site. This is the Steinman pin, 4.5 Steinman pin, sharp end and talker end, and one end there is a blunt end, and there will be a slot to hold it with a drill chunk. Okay, this is called Steinman pin. Is the most commonly pin used in the orthopedic for skeletal traction. But there is this is smooth. If this pin will in between there will be serration or any thread. This is called Denham's pin. This Denham's pin used for holding this bone in the osteoporotic bone. So in the age of more than 70% and 70 year, or patient is suffering from osteoporosis, then for skeletal traction you have to put it by this serration. This is called Denham's pin, and this Denham's pin will introduce through this tibia, one finger and below, and the lateral from lateral aspect to middle aspect to prevent the damage of the common peroneal nerve from the proximal part of the tibia. This is the most commonly asked question in the exam, and this is called volar stirrup. Okay, this helps for putting this pin along with the traction, and this is called volar Brown splint. The three pulley you have to know. This will prevent the foot drop, and this pulley it helps for giving the traction if the fracture of the shaft femur. If this pulley is used, then it will helps for the calcaneum traction, or it will helps for any fracture over the tibia. Okay, this is called volar bound splint. Now this is called Thomas splint. Okay, this is universal. You can use it both lateral side, middle side, and this if you we use it in the right side, then this GT this angle will help to accommodate the GT. Okay, for making this Thomas pin usable, you have to take help of this roller bandage cotton and this type of thing, and you have to take a measurement of the couch, and a measurement from the GT up to the heel, and you have to add 5 centimeter, you have to add 10 centimeter over this area to make the length of this Thomas pin and the girth of this Thomas pin. And by this Thomas pin you can apply fixed traction in case of pediatric shaft femur fracture management, because this is a surface traction. Okay, traction is two type. One is bone skeletal traction, one is surface traction. See, this is the skin traction. It's called surface traction. Maximum 5 kg weight you can apply, because more than 5 kg weight we can cause the shearing force, excessive shearing for the skin. It can damage the skin. Okay, so blister can occur. So surface traction maximum 5 kg, and skeletal traction 10 to 15 kg of the body weight of that patient accordingly. For adult we used to use in skeletal traction. For children we used to do in surface traction maximum cases. Now if we apply surface traction over the Thomas pin, then most commonly is called fixed traction. The most commonly treatment of the shaft femur fracture in the pediatric age group. Okay, this is called Thomas splint. Now this instrument is called cervical spine fracture, is called Crutchfield tongue traction. The pin and will put on the just below the parietal eminence, and the line joining the pinna of the vertically above in the junction by just drilling the outer cortex of the diploic space of the parietal bone. Okay, and you can do it on a local anesthesia even, and you have to put 10 pound weight, and then you have to add extra 10 pound after the count of the cervical vertebra where the fracture occurred. Okay, so this is help in cervical fracture is called Crutchfield tongue traction. Now, regarding the osteology part, you have to know some basic anatomical structure or basic location of the any important structure or important entry point of any implant. Like femur, you have to know this is called surgical neck, and if this is called piriform fossa. This is the entry point of the nail. Okay, and this is called soleal. This is called linea aspera line. This linea aspera helps for orientation of the saphenous reduction, and this linea aspera will attach with the intermuscular septum along with if there is any injury over this area, you can injure the perforators over this area, and that will cause devastating bleeding. Okay, and this is the nutrient foramen, and this is the two condyle, and sometimes question may ask over this this condylar region. This is called adductor tubercle, and mm, regarding this uh, this femoral condyle, uh, this articular surface will get attachment of the patella. So you have to know something about patella also. One surface of the patella will smooth and another surface of the patella will be rough, and that is a sesamoid bone over the ligamentum patelli. Okay, tendon. Now, for the tibia part, you have to know the tibial tuberosity, the attachment of the ligamentum patelli, and in the tibial spine. In this is the entry point of the tibial nail. Okay, and on the posterior aspect, there is a line. It's called soleal line. Why this is important? Above this, there is a origin of the popliteus muscle, and below this, there is origin of the soleus muscle. And here is a trifurcation of the posterior tubular artery, and there is a chance of injury in the vascular structure over here. So any line, fracture line which pass through the soleal line, there is a chance of vascular injury over this area. And sometimes you can ask what is the shin bone, shin border. This is the shin border in the anterior medial aspect of the tibia, and this is if you will see from the posterior aspect, there will be posterior manulus. Okay, that will also ask, and this is the medial manulus. They will ask for what are the attachment site of the deltoid. So me the attachment and site of the tibialis anterior muscle. You have to show this area. This is the attachment area of tibialis anterior muscle. It also take origin from the interosseous space also. And this in the medial aspect of this proximal tibia, there is a hockey stick like insertion of the rope of Gay. Rope of Gay means sartorius, gracilis, and semitendinosus. Okay, and this is the pes anus insertion. And on the lateral aspect, if there is any swelling over this area, is called Gadi tubercle. This is the insertion site of the iliotibial band. Okay, now for humerus, most important part is the bare area of the humerus. This is the entry point of the humerus nail. It is just anterior to the greater tubercle, and and this is the bicipital group, and on the lateral aspect of the bicipital group and the middle aspect, this is the two ridge. One is pectoralis major muscle, one is teres major muscle, and in between there will be latissimus dorsi muscle attachment, and through this bicipital group the long head of biceps will go through. Okay, now if any damage over this area by rotator cuff tear, there will be a chance of this area of injury, but there is a bare area from this articular surface. This is the entry point of the nail. Now this is called surgical neck, sorry, this is called the anatomical neck just 2 to 3 millimeter distal of this articular surface, this is called anatomical neck. But 2 centimeter below this is called surgical neck. This is the most common site of fracture, and this is the most common site of injury to the axillary nerve and circumflex humerus artery also. Okay, now this is called radial groove or spiral groove, where the most common chance of radial nerve injury is there. Okay, and on the posterior aspect there is, this is called olecranon fossa, and this is called radial fossa and coronoid fossa, and this is the trochlear rail, this is the capitulum, this is the middle condyle, middle epicondyle, and this is the groove where the ulnar nerve will pass. Okay, the question may ask where, show me the area where the three nerve will pass. One, this is the axillary nerve, two, this is the radial nerve, and three is the ulnar nerve. And this area, the lateral supracondylar ridge, this also came in close relation with the radial nerve. And if there is any fracture, it's called Hoffa fracture, that can cause impingement of the bone with this radial radial nerve. Okay, and this is the olecranon fossa, where the olecranon will engage. And sometimes we can get a hole over this fossa, and sometimes we can get a hole over the medial aspect of this medial supracondylar disc, and that is called two-third ligament. Okay, and that can cause compression over the medial nerve. Okay, now for forearm they will ask the disposition of the interosseous space or interossei, because this interosseous line will help for orientation of the bone during the reduction of or plating over this bone. Okay, this line will help for reduction. And this is the radial tuberosity with the attachment of the biceps tendon, and this is the radial head and the neck, and the most common site of the fracture of the radius. And this, there is a tubercle, this is called Lister tubercle. This is very important, is found in the dorsal aspect of the radius, and the area over the proximal to the Lister tubercle, there will be bare area, and you can put nail or any tens through this area. And for pediatric age group, if we put a nail through of this ulna, you have to take care of these physis over affecting on the olecranon. So you have to the entry point should be the distal to this area. We can through this wall, and that will help to prevent the physical damage. And sometimes in adult you will put a rush nail, you can put this nail through this tip of the olecranon also. Okay, and the straight border of the or subcutaneous border of the ulna is this. Okay, you have to show your finger. This is the styloid process, and this is the normal negative ulnar variants 1.5 centimeter below this, and this is the radius styloid process. And this is the normal bowing of this radius. Sometimes they ask that what is the attachment of the quadratus femoris. In the volar aspect, there is the attachment of the quadratus femoris. During the volar plating, you have to cut this attachment. And there is a ridge is called pointer teres over this radius, distal radius. And for radius, you can do plating over the volar aspect in the distal radius, and you can do plate over this radius in any aspect, anterior, medial, lateral. But try to put bone graft away from this interosseous space, because it can cause the synostosis or iatrogenic synostosis over this interosseous space. Okay, and For ulna, you can put plate over anterior aspect or posterior aspect. Try to avoid plate over the shin border of the ulna. Okay. Now, here the last is pelvis. You have to know the iliac fossa, you have to know the iliopectoral line, opioidal line, and the sciatic notch, get a sciatic notch that will be help for traversing the sciatic nerve. This is the sacroiliac joint, is a posterior superior spine. Most common bone graft taking from this area or this area. Do not avoid this endosphilia spine. This is the diagram of sartorius and the inguinal ligament, and if there is any fracture over this area, that will be not a issue, but if fracture of this area, that will be an issue. Okay. And the sacroiliac joint is very important joint, and which can cause the instability of the hip, and the line joining of the hip with the spine. Okay. Now, one question will call is called true pelvis. Below the pelvic brim, all this deep cavity is called true pelvis, and above this pelvic brim is called false pelvis. Okay. Now, on the Gan Viva, you can ask, sir can ask any questions, but you have to know triage. What is triage? In any type of big natural calamity or any type of management of any accident, you have to face huge amount of patients where they can die, they can do only small dressing, they can with priority priority of the management. So how you assess? This is called triage. You have to categorize that patient in the four group. Green patient, there will be no respiratory failure, no need of ventilation support, no only small dressing can do, and yellow patient is we can wait, but in the red patient you cannot wait, you have to do immediate intervention, and this is wrong. This will be black. Okay, if this is black, then that that person will dead, and after that you can ask about the definition of polytrauma. Do not put any definition that multiple fracture is called polytrauma. No, polytrauma is not a synonym of multiple fracture. Multiple fracture are purely orthopedic problem, as there is involvement skeletal system. But if it is associated with some bluntoma abdomen, is associated with the hemodynamically unstable patient, is associated with the failed chest or any lung injury or any head injury, then the patient is in the spinal cord injury, then this patient is called as polytrauma, and that patient must be treated with a damage control surgery and with a good care. So I think I can cover all the required point and the basic point over to assessment over the radiological aspect, along with and give a good show to your exam. And I think in your practical purpose also, never forget this rule of two, both AP, lateral, both joint involvement, patient, and you have to assess patient along with the X-ray, and my rule, local view and systemic view. It was my mistake, so I don't want any mistake from you. Thank you.